सुनचे
Elect, good morning. Now we are going to start. First, we have to national anthem by the Tibetan group. We have all to stand up, and the national anthem will be played. Thank you. Now I invite respected Sikong and the respected Chief Justice Commission, Sri Dakpoji, and followed by other dignitaries for the lighting of the lamp. Now, I invite Sri R.K. Khirmeji, the convener of the core group for Tibetan cause in India and the organizer of the conference, to welcome our delegates who has come from different parts of the world in this conference. Sri R.K. Khirmeji.
Honorable Sikyong, Dr. Loktan Sangye ji, Honorable Pema Jungne ji, Honorable Speaker of the Exile Parliament, Tibetan Exile Parliament, Mr. Sonam Norbu Dakpo, the Chief Justice of the Justice Commission of the Tibetan government, Honorable Council of Ministers of the Exile government, Honorable Deputy Speaker of the Tibetan Parliament, and other very distinguished guests on the dais are the former Deputy Prime Minister of the Czechoslovakia, some of the members of the Parliament from the other countries, those who are here. We have just been less than 24 hours together, so I may not know their names, so I may be excused for not being able to take their names. And the respected and distinguished participants from all over the country, all over the world, and also the secretaries, all the officials, especially of the Department of the DIR, and friends. Good morning to all, and also namaskar. Now, namaskar is a word of greetings in India. We have also a different the wordings like, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. But namaskar is one word. If you use it, that is a greetings you can use all throughout 24 hours. So when you are in our country in India, please take this word as namaskar, and any Indian you come across all over the world, you can greet him with namaskar. Well, let me first of all welcome all of you in this historic conference. Just before coming to this, the welcoming all of you, let me introduce that my name is R.K. Khirme, but the full name is Orenchin Khandu Khirme. I am the national convener for the core group for Tibetan cause. Now let me tell you what is the core group for the Tibetan cause. We have in our country, there are 16 major non-official and non-government organizations. Those who are working for the other things also, those who are working for the Tibetan cause in our country. When we calculate their chapters all over the country in different states, it amounts to somewhere about 300 branches we have. So these NGOs, these organizations, these voluntary organizations are working since the day, since the year His Holiness Dalai Lama has landed in our country, because this was the first voice in our parliament, in the Indian parliament, to liberate every inch of the Indian land occupied by the China, and secondly, to liberate Tibet. This was the resolutions. So after that, the Indians have started forming the different organizations and started supporting the Tibetan cause. So this was working all over the country. But you see, there was the coordination was not there. The different organizations were working at different parts of the country, and they were all working for the Tibetan cause. So during the time of the former Prime Minister, Reverend Samdong Rinpoche, it was thought out that, you see, there should be a coordinating apex body which will coordinate all the activities and all the movements of these different organizations in our country. So therefore, with that concept, the core group for Tibetan cause has come, and this is the apex non-government organizations based in Delhi. So we have 4 national co-conveners. I'm the national convener. There are 4 national co-conveners. We're divided Eastern, Western, Southern, and then, like that, we've done it. And we have also divided whole country into 14 regions earlier. Now, we recently, from this year, we made it into 17 regions. Regional regions we have divided. So this is how, we are coordinating the workings of for the cause of the Tibet all over the country, creating awareness among the younger generations, and the taking parts in the important days of the Tibetan movement, their uprising day, and also His Holiness, the important days, including the receipt of the honoring of your Nobel Prize to him, and Human Rights Days. All these activities we continue in our country. Friends, all of you know, we all are here, that we all know that Tibet was an independent country. It was a sovereign independent country. It was unfortunately, occupied forcefully, illegally and unlawfully occupied by China in 1959. Immediately after the occupations, there was a strong conspiracy to arrest His Holiness Dalai Lama, to detain him. And it was, I think, our luck, our fortune, and the fortune of the luck of the Tibetan people, that he could able to come out from there and take asylum in India. I feel there are 2 reasons. One is, because of his presence, he is coming out from there, presence in this country, the Tibetan cause of the Tibetan is still alive. Secondly, the Nalanda tradition, the Nalanda Buddhist traditions, which was diminishing, which was extinguishing, So that which Tibet has revived is now getting on, and he has made it universally accepted religion of this Nalanda tradition of the Tibetan Buddhist. So therefore, we are all for the Tibetan cause. We have also recently, as I told you, that we have this Tibet support groups in our country. We had this year, in the month of June, which was also as a chief guest, graced by the Dr. Lobsang Sangye, the Honorable Sikyong, on 16 and 17 of the June of this year. And we had also, because this is also biennial, we also have the different organizations. We also meet, like we are meeting here at this international conference. We had that international conference in that. I find that, because Tibet will get definitely our struggle, our movement, our activities, our wish to see the Tibet to be an independent country tomorrow will fulfill. Because I feel the history tells us to know whatsoever the powerful that country may be, but he cannot continue to dominate, forcefully occupy some other country against the wish of the people, against the will of the people. Slight trailer has been shown in Hong Kong this year. So therefore, let's all pray and be ourselves dedicate. Once we are all here to fight for the cause of the Tibet, we will be definitely, we'll be very, very successful on that issue. The second reason I find is this is the fight between, the fight between the right, truth, and false. Fight between non-violence and violence. Fight between love, affections, compassion, and hate. We are all working with the blessings of His Holiness 14th Dalai Lama, who practices love, affections, compassion. In spite of greatest crisis in his lifetime, he preaches for the world peace. He preaches for the brotherhood, compassion. And on the other hand, China believes in non-violence. They practices involvements in the suppressions, violation of the human rights. So therefore, but again in the history also tells us that truth always prevails. Therefore, the Tibet independence, attaining independence, is not very far. And our efforts, and let me tell you, my friends from all over the world, that when we are working for the Tibet, and now we are coming here, we are adding a one page in the Tibetan, the independence struggle. In the history of the Tibetan independence struggle, we are adding one page or one line. Every one of us are adding into that. So this, therefore, is a very historical, and it's very memorable also. We are all human beings. We may not be there tomorrow, but in our lifetime, if it achieves, we can also see ourselves. But in our lifetime, we are not able to see. But tomorrow, when it gets through, when the Tibet gets an independence, the history will say that we are the people, we have those who have contributed to the Tibetan cause. Therefore, friends, I very, very heartily welcome all of you from my core of heart, that you are here for this conference. You must be attending many conferences, but here you have come with a commitment. Here you have come with some mission. Friends, if we had a meeting here, as I told you that Tibet support groups of India chapter, we had a meeting. We had adopted two resolutions. One was that the present the Tibetan government, under the blessings of His Holiness 14th Dalai Lama, has adopted a middle path. We said let there not be any contradictions with their approach, with their thinking, and with our approach and with our activities. So we said, let us support. That is one. Secondly, any problem in the world, any problem including your families also, dialogue is the most important thing. So we said resumption of a dialogue, suspended dialogue with the representative of His Holiness 14th Dalai Lama, or now with his blessings, the CTS representations, including CTS representations also, and with the representations of the People's Republic of China. Now, what is our urgency? But to me, I find, because I've said, as I told you, I have been telling from the beginning of my address, I said Tibet independence is foregone conclusion. It will come, but time is different. But I am saying that only urgency is that we would like to see some solution to come during the lifetime of His Holiness 14th Dalai Lama, so that he can honorably go back to his motherland and at least, re-establish there his authority. That is the only urgency where we have to work very strongly. So, friends, I will now say that, we have, as far as we Indians are concerned, we have a very powerful and popular Prime Minister and leader in our country, who has established one of the most powerful leader in the world in the last very short span of 5 years. We have a lot of confidence on him. He has done a lot of work for the people of our country, which are very visible. And one most visible thing is those people, the foreigners, the friends coming from the abroad, those who have been visiting our country. If you have visited about 10 years back, 5 years back, and we are visiting now, you must be seeing the differences, at least in the part of cleanliness. We have traveled by trains, how you can Earlier, you are not able to stand on the railway stations. Now, you can eat on the railway stations also. So, of course, many other programs have done. We have a confidence on him. We have a full faith on our Prime Minister that he will take the lead for the Tibetan cause in a very appropriate time. Only time is the factor. Otherwise, he is committed. He would like to see the problems to be solved. Because the problem, His Holiness staying for the last 60 years is also a problem for us. It's an issue with us, it's with our country. So therefore, I'm very, very confident that with his the leaderships and with the active movement and cooperations from all over the world, the Tibetans, the light on the Tibetans is sovereign, independent country to be declared is not very far. And here also, there are the people, those who have also come out from we also compliment the Tibetan peoples under the leadership of Dr. Lobsang Sangye, that you see the people and His Holiness, of course, with the blessings of blessings of 14th Dalai Lama, that most of the people, most of the people coming out at that time, staying all over the country, are still thinking for the working for the reestablishment of the independent, sovereign, independent country. I think it's, you can understand that there are patriotisms, because even if you have seen over the last 2 years, the self-immolations which has taken place when they could not bear that, the tyranny and then inhuman treatment of the Chinese government. That has proved, after 60 years also, that has proved the burning of the patriotism in the hearts of the Tibetan people, be it inside the Tibet or be it outside of Tibet. Therefore, we should all help out to keep up this, the flame alive, and see that, when the opportunity comes, we must burn down the tyranny country of the China. With these words, I welcome all the delegates from all over the country, and here in our country first, and most particularly in Dharamsala for this the 8th international conferences, and with my all good wishes. Thank you very much. Jai Bharat, Jai Tibet, and Jai Jagat. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sri Khirmeji, for your address, and I hope what you have said in your address, that Indian leader, present Prime Minister, will definitely play a positive role in the case of Tibet. We expect so, and in coming time, we are looking forward for the appropriate time. Thank you. Now I request the chief guest, Honorable Speaker of the Tibetan Parliament in Exile, Sri Pema Jugne Ji, to address the conference. Sri Pema Jugne Ji, Honorable Speaker, Tibetan Parliament in Exile.
All the dignitaries on the dais and honorable participants of this conference and friends, Trashi Tilak, and welcome to Dharamsala. I hope you all had a pleasant journey on the way to Dharamsala. Today, we are gathered here for this important conference, which solely aims to thank each one of you who had over the years worked tremendously hard for the issue of Tibet. This platform especially defines your commitment, time, sacrifices, dedication, and loyalty towards the just cause of Tibet. On behalf of all the Tibetans in and outside Tibet, and the 16th Tibetan Parliament in exile, I offer my heartfelt gratitude to all of you who have been a support system of our lives. It is indeed a privilege to interact with you from time to time. Your presence in our movement revitalized the hope of Tibetan inside Tibet and across the world in keeping Tibetan issue alive even after 60 years of exile and working hard towards its resolution. During our earlier years of exile, Tibetan people and the Central Tibetan administration received minimum support and attention from the international communities. However, in the late 1980s, His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, Central Tibetan administration, and very few Tibet support groups succeeded in gaining attention from international medias and public for the issue of Tibet. Thus, in 1990, Central Tibetan administration held the first international conference on Tibet support groups in Dharamsala to bring more awareness about the issue of Tibet on a broader platform and to garner more support from the international communities. Today, we have more than 250 Tibet support groups who are working actively towards resolving the issue of Tibet. Over the years, Tibet support groups advocated the issue of Tibet with their parliamentarians and appealed them to table the matter in their respective parliament, made awareness to their people in their respective countries, held rallies, conferences, seminars, strategies, campaign, organized peace marches, and many other activities. We surely in noteworthy, and we are indeed very thankful to all of you. Not only that, they pressured policy decision makers of their respective countries to design policies for the betterment and support of the Tibetan movement. I hereby want to emphasize again that until 1979, Central Tibetan administration and the Tibetan people adopted a policy of seeking independence for Tibet, since Tibet was an independent country before the illegal occupation of Tibet by People's Republic of China. But then, with the changes in the independent status of countries and nationalities in the world, His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama came up with a great vision of middle way approach as the most sensible step in solving the conflict of Tibet and China in the early 1970s. His Holiness, being very pragmatic, in real terms didn't impose his vision on Tibetan people. On the contrary, His Holiness had a series of discussions with the chairperson and vice chairperson of the Assembly of Tibetan People's Deputies, the then Tibetan Parliament in exile, the Kasha cabinet, and many scholarly and experienced people on middle way approach that he envisioned as an alternate solution to resolve Tibetan issue, particularly in 1979. The late Chinese paramount leader Deng Xiaoping proposed to His Holiness the Dalai Lama, I quote, "Accept independence. All other issues can be resolved through negotiations," unquote. Further convinced the belief in resolving the issue of Tibet on a mutually beneficial solution, above that, the confirmation of Tibetans and the suggestions from the Tibet paved a way towards the unanimous adoption of this policy middle way approach in the Assembly of Tibetan People's Deputies on 18th September 1997. Eventually, this approach was adopted democratically and evolved gradually. This peaceful approach meets the realistic interests of both Tibetan and Chinese people and clearly implies of not seeking independence, but a genuine autonomy within the framework of the People's Republic of China. Though it is very obvious that in history, Tibet has been an independent country. Furthermore, yet again, after the majority support on middle way approach from Tibetan people during the 2008 special general meeting held in Dharamsala, Tibetan Parliament in Exile adopted a unanimous resolution to this policy on 20th March 2010. Therefore, I appeal each one of you to support middle way approach in solving the just cause of Tibet and hereby strategies, ideas, and policies in the interests of both the people of Tibet and China. There has been 7 international conferences on Tibet support groups, and in all these conferences, Central Tibetan Administration has again and again requested you to acknowledge these mutually beneficial steps in solving the cause of Tibet. And today, on this 8th International Conference too, we appeal you once more to follow in middle way approach in working towards Tibetan movement, as you all are aware that this approach is the political stand of Central Tibetan Administration. Besides that, Tibet Support Group has constantly advocated the worsening human rights situation inside Tibet, the degrading environmental situation, the enforced education policies, the damming projects, the reincarnation process, the appointment of special coordinator for Tibet in the United States of America and European Union. And most importantly, the appeal to resume the dialogue of Chinese counterpart with the representative of His Holiness Dalai Lama or Central Tibetan Administration. We are indeed thankful to you in working towards these important endorsements. Likewise, we are thankful to all those parliamentarians and parliamentary groups for Tibet for passing reciprocal access to Tibet law, the adoption of Tibet Policy and Support Act of 2019, the US Tibetan Resettlement Project in the 1990s, Tibetan Resettlement Project in early 1970s and 2007 in Canada, adoption of resolution of European Union on the increasingly repressive regime on Tibetan and minority groups in China, resolution in support of human rights and religious freedom of Tibetan in Tibet, especially referring to the right to identify reincarnation of lamas without the interference of Chinese authorities, passing of resolutions and statements in solidarity with the self-evolutions. Moreover, we are appreciative of your voices towards release of 11th Panchen Lama, Chadar Rinpoche, and all those other Tibetan political prisoners inside Tibet, and we urge you to continue raising your voice for their immediate release. In the earlier conferences, we had witnessed the participation of more and more Chinese scholars, writers, reporters, and human rights activists, and even in this conference too, we have them supporting for the just cause of Tibet. Since the adoption of the middle way approach, the Chinese brothers and sisters too realize that this step is beneficial to both Tibetan people and them. There are now growing number of Chinese people, including the intellectuals, scholars, human rights activists, reporters, writers, and lay people who are proposing and recommending their government to accept it and solve the long-standing issue of Tibet. Chinese brothers and sisters are now more open in their thoughts towards taking nonviolence as the most valuable step in resolving any conflicts with Tibetans inside Tibet. Likewise, they are opting for a democratic rule in China, which accordingly will be significant to Tibetan inside Tibet and other minority groups within China. Though it is very evident that you all had been actively lobbying the issue of Tibet with your parliamentarians, but then we reiterate your request to inform and update your parliamentarians about the ongoing critical situation inside Tibet and appeal them to propose this urgency in their respective parliament to call upon Chinese authorities to resort to peaceful policies inside Tibet and urge them to restart the dialogue process with representative of His Holiness Dalai Lama, which was at a standstill from 2010. There has been only 9 rounds of talks with the Chinese government from 2002. The representatives of His Holiness Dalai Lama during the 8th round of talks presented the Chinese counterpart a copy of Memorandum on Genuine Autonomy for the Tibetan people, which states the importance of the middle way approach for both China and Tibet. Then in the 9th round of talks, a note on Memorandum for Genuine Autonomy for the Tibetan people, where it explained how the demands of the Tibetan people, as articulated in the memorandum given during 8th round of talk, did not violate the Chinese constitution. So right after 2010, despite being met every effort by CTA, there was no positive response from Chinese authorities for further negotiations, and thus we appeal each one of you to kindly advocate your parliamentarians to call upon Chinese government to restart the negotiation to amicably resolve the Tibetan issue. This year in May, we had 7th World Parliamentarian Convention on Tibet, WPCT, organized by Tibetan Parliament in Exile in association with Latvian Parliamentary Group for Tibet and International Network of Parliamentarians for Tibet, where the parliamentarians from all over the world declared the urgency of Sino-Tibet conflict resolvement and especially urged all the parliamentarians to adopt the reciprocal access to Tibet Act, laws, and adopt resolution in their parliament towards furthering the issue of Tibet. Then just recently in October 2019, we have the 3rd Special General Meeting organized jointly by Tibetan Parliament in Exile and Kashak, wherein a resolution has been passed calling on the Chinese government that the process for the discovery and recognition of the reincarnation of His Holiness Dalai Lama, the entire task and powers lies in His Holiness himself and the duly empowered responsible officials of the Ganden important task of the Dalai Lama, and in no way can any other entity, be it any nation, any government, any organization of whatever description, or any private individual. And this resolution outrightly rejects the effort made and still being made by the government of China in the process for the discovery and recognition of reincarnation in Tibetan Buddhism in general, and especially its coercive order number 5, declared in 2007 on the question of the recognition of the reincarnation of tulkus and lamas in Tibetan Buddhism, through which it sought to plot its interference in the recognition of the reincarnation of His Holiness Dalai Lama Moreover, it was declared that His Holiness, the great 14th Dalai Lama, is the unsurpassable leader of Tibetan nation and will continue as the ultimate protector, refuge of utmost recourse, both for the present and the future Dalai Lama for 100 aeons. Lastly, on behalf of all Tibetans and Tibetan Parliament in exile, I sincerely extend my utmost gratitude to all the governments, parliaments, non-government organizations, and private individuals who have so far extended support and offer solidarity in this crucial period of Tibetan. The respective Tibet support groups constantly supported our Tibetan brothers and sisters in their respective localities, and I urge to kindly continue giving your support and assistance to them. Within these 3 days of conference, I hope you all will come up with new strategies and framework policies in support of Sino-Tibetan relation, which is in the betterment of our brothers and sisters inside Tibet who are still undergoing brutal repression under Chinese rule. With this, I end my speech with a positive attitude and believe that your support will remain on us till the Tibet issue is resolved. Today, we are gathered here not to agitate or conspire planning to destroy China, but we are here to convey the Chinese authorities that we are desperately willing to resolve the long-standing issue of Tibet through peaceful dialogue. Wish all of you a very fruitful conference. Thank you once again for your support. Thank you so much.
Thanks to you, Sri Pimaji, for your gracious address to this conference. And I can assure you on behalf of Indian support groups and other support groups of the different parts of the world that we will keep the flag of resistance flying in support of your struggle. Thank you. Now I invite the people's leader, Sikyong, our beloved Dr. Lobjang Sangye, for the keynote address of the conference. I will request you, before he joins the podium, to give a big hand to him.
Leaders of the 3 pillars of Tibetan democracy and secretaries of various departments, representative of different offices of Tibet, and dear friends from around the world, on behalf of my colleagues here, Kashak, I would like to extend my heartfelt and warm greetings to all of you. And Tashi Delek. We are Tibetans, so we believe in omens. We consult gods and deities and look for signs and symbols for anything auspicious, anything good. So I asked my staff to bring me all the past resolutions of TSGs, and we have had this the 8th. And number 8 is significant. Please remember that. I'll conclude with number 8. And then I looked at the resolution of 1990, the first TSG. And 1990 represents great things in the world. We have a representative, our Member of Parliament of South Africa, Nelson Mandela, was released from prison. He walked tall in his majestic, elegant way and restored democracy in South Africa. No one believed that it would happen. He spent 27 years in prison, of which 8 years in solitary confinement. And I visited the Robben Island, where he spent many years. No one believed it would happen, and it did.
And we have representatives from Germany here. Recently, we had delegates from Germany, and they were asking me to give me hope, some inspiring message. And I said, you are from Germany. You brought down that wall. And that's our inspiration. Now you have come to Dharamsala to seek our inspiration. And we have representatives from Czech Republic and Slovakia too. And I was there, they were telling me, we are so pessimistic about Tibet. Give us hope. And I said, my goodness, Václav Havel drafted Charter 77, Velvet Revolution. No one believed you would succeed, and you did. You are our inspiration. Don't ask for our inspiration. So 1990s was the good old days. Even for Tibetans, that was the peak, or at the peaking stage of the Tibetan movement. Why? Mass movements around the world shook the earth and brought changes, democracy and human rights around the world. So now the question is, are we in 1990s or not? If we are not, then the movement of the Tibet also will be sidelined. But I'll make the argument that we are on the verge of entering or already entering the 1990s stage. Just a few days ago, I was reading the news, and I'm not taking sides, okay? I'm not taking sides here. I just read the news and it says, because of consistent people's protests from grassroots level, the Prime Minister of Lebanon resigned. And because of people's protests in Iraq, just yesterday, Prime Minister of Iraq is resigning. Because of people's protests in Prague, the largest since 90s happened. People protest in Istanbul, in Turkey, happened. And you can see in Venezuela, everywhere. And of course, our dear friends in Hong Kong. Persistently and consistently, they have led this people's protest. So 1990s is back. And the earth is shaking for more freedom, more human rights, more democracy. And people in Hong Kong is making it very clear, loud and clear, that we are here not for a few weeks, not for a few months, but for a long haul. And so are our friends in East Turkestan, our friends in Taiwan. They are also itching for January 11 election of the president of Taiwan. I'm not taking sides here, but at the early stage of the election, President Tsai Ing-wen poll was okay. But with the protests in Hong Kong, she has climbed up. Now she is almost 14 to 18% ahead. So you can clearly see the people's movement is shaking a lot of things around the world. And globally too. Now there is consensus in Washington, D.C. that the Chinese government is a competition. And accordingly, they are formulating policies and executing policies. As a testament, recently, CTA invited Ambassador at Large for International Religious Freedom, Ambassador Brownback. He came to Dharamsala at the invitation of CTA and made the strongest speech in support of religious freedom and reincarnation after what we just concluded, as this honorable speaker was mentioning, the largest body of Tibetan community leaders, a special general body meeting from all over the world, 350 leaders from 25 countries came, and we passed a unanimous resolution saying reincarnation is an issue of religious freedom. The traditional reincarnation system was invented by Tibetans, the Tulku system, 1,000 years ago. We invented it, so we have complete copyright over it, patent over it. China can make a lot of duplicate things, but they cannot make duplicates of reincarnation system. This is originally ours. And the Ambassador Brownback agreed And he said his speech was approved by the State Department and the White House. So as an official statement of the US government is to support the Tibetan version or Tibetan stand on reincarnation. Accordingly, not just the political leaders or the intelligence or the security people, even the business communities are having second thoughts in doing business with China. German Business Association officially issued a statement saying China is a systemic competition to German business. So hence the image of China, that we can make business with China, we can make profits with China, is shifting, is changing. Now, as far as CT is concerned, as per His Holiness' vision, we want all the countries to engage with China. Yeah, do business if you can make money. Have diplomatic relationship with China. We are not against boycotting anything. Having said that, but this is the changes in the landscape of the global arena, where China is seen or looked more skeptically than a few years ago. So in this changing landscape, Tibet support groups, now we have to tighten our belt and encourage ourselves to march forward for some more years, for some more activities, for some more events around the world, so that we can march towards Lhasa very soon. And what do we need to do? In the first THG meeting of 1990, we passed, interestingly, 8 resolutions, 8 things to do. 1, work towards His Holiness being invited overseas on state visits and address the United Nations. His Holiness has traveled to 65 countries. He has published more than 100 books, and he has received more than 100 awards, including Nobel Peace Prize, Templeton Prize for Religious Harmony, and UN Prize for Environmental Issues. Number 2, to establish May 13 as Human Rights Day for China and Tibet. I just could not get why it was May 13, but it was there. There must be some, maybe related to Panchen Lama being arrested or something. Number 3, to initiate International Tibet Flag Days, which is very popular and widely followed in European countries. If I'm not mistaken, in Czech Republic, more than 500 towns and schools hoist Tibetan national flag every year. In Germany, more than 500 towns. In France, too. I think it has been a European campaign. I think we have to take it globally. Yes, we should talk to the members of parliament. Yes, we should talk to leaders in the government. But I think we should take the movement to the grassroots, to the towns and the mayors and the schools, and hosting a flag from Europe, where in Europe is very popular. And we should take it to the towns of different continents as well. And I must mention Italy too, where it's very popular. And then 4th was to set up computer information network. So the first website was launched, Tibet.net. Now those days, few hundreds used to read Tibet.net. Now we have an estimated visitors of, I think, 8 million viewers a year. Now these are viewing pages, are not visitors. And we have launched Tibet TV too now. It's in English, it's in Chinese, it's in Hindi, of course it's in Tibetan. So we have fulfilled all that. Having said that, Michael will be speaking on this, more in terms of narrative, international narrative. Yes, we are for a middle way approach. Having said that, we also made very clear historical status of Tibet, and we have published a book, which you all will have a copy, which says Tibet was never part of China, but middle way is a viable option. So we stand by middle way, but the narrative has to be that Tibet was never part of China. Tibet was historically and legally an independent country, based on which we are compromising with the Chinese government. We are taking a moderate stand, and we are willing to take less than what we deserve so that we can reach a win-win proposition, so that China's sovereignty and territorial integrity will not be challenged, and we will have genuine autonomy for Tibetans. And the fifth was to internationally publish the destruction of Tibet's environment. And we have an expert from Tibet Policy Institute who is speaking on this topic. And Tibet's environment in this campaign for global warming and climate change. Recently, even the UN experts' reports on climate change, they don't mention Tibet. They ignored Tibet for a few years, rather several years. And afterwards, some experts said, if you don't understand the Tibetan Plateau, which has the third largest reserve of ice after Antarctica and Arctic, the study of climate change is incomplete. Even Chinese environmentalists said, we must declare Tibet as a third pole national park, because of which now they have started including Tibet in the report, but describe more as Himalayan region and few Tibetan areas. So from 1990, yes, we have achieved something, but I think as per the campaign of the climate change and global warming, Tibet's environment has to be vital. And number 6 was to campaign more effectively with dissident Chinese students abroad. Now we have established at least 3 Chinese liaison officers in Washington, D.C., Geneva, and Australia, and Taipei Office of Tibet primarily reaches out to Chinese people as well. And then to intensify lobbying at the UN through the other governments and non-government bodies. This still remains relevant. We need to make more efforts. If you have seen at the recent Human Rights Council debates, China is trying to change the definition of human rights. They have already passed 2 resolutions. Their definition of human rights. If that succeeds, becomes a statute, then it will be problematic for any country, anybody, we Tibetans, to go to the UN and seek justice on human rights. I think we need to do more of this, and I think we have one panel speaking on how to reach out to UN as well. And then number 8 was to establish an environment desk, and we have done that as well. So from 1990, the 8 points, the 8th resolution clearly says, now the question is, what do we do next? We should stick to the basics. We should continue to do what we decided to do in 1990, 8 points. And I think we can add some more. We have to reach out to more universities and think tanks. We have to form coalitions with other NGOs to make our voice more effective, to magnify our voices. So these are the things we can add. Now, on other issues, we have experts touching on it, and I mentioned reincarnation issue. And this is going to be a major issue in coming years, and our friends around the world should be prepared. Because reincarnation is a major issue facing Tibetans. And the Chinese government has a plan, and they are already implementing it. In 2007, Chinese government issued document number 5, regulating reincarnation process, which says that if there is a Lama to be recognized, you must submit your application to the district level Communist Party. And if you get the approval and the authentication from the district level Communist Party, you are a Lama. Now, for an atheist government, which says religion is a poison, to issue a certificate for reincarnation Lama in itself is an irony, at least, but that's the system. But if you think you are a higher Lama, you can take the district level certificate and go to the state level and say, I'm higher Lama, please issue me a state level certificate. Then if you still think you are the highest ones, then you can go to the national level, and national level will issue you certificate. Now, this sounds like a joke, but it's real. Based on this document, Chinese government recognized 300 some lamas. Now in April 2016, they increased to 800 some lamas. And in November of 2016, all of a sudden it jumped to 1,300. Now historically, we never had more than 545 or 550 lamas. Now suddenly it has mushroomed, inflated to 1,300 lamas recognized by the Communist Party of China. Now they are given workshops, they are given trainings, and other criteria are, if you are a true reincarnated lamas, you have certain responsibilities. Number one, you have to be loyal to the Communist Party of China. And you must work towards social harmony. You must be politically correct in what you say. And interestingly, you should not have any contact with the Dalai Lama. And related to you all, you should not have any contact with international organizations. Then only you are our spiritual leader. My goodness, spiritual leader has to take so many political responsibilities. Loyal to the Communist Party, political correct, social harmony. You can't contact Dalai Lama. You cannot have any contact with international organizations. So these are the criteria. And they are given workshops. And it's serious. Just a few months ago, they gave a workshop in Lhasa, and one Lama came out and said, today, I'm enlightened about my responsibilities as a reincarnation Lama. Now I know what my responsibilities are. And he's quoted on Chinese news media. Now, Tibetan Lamas are getting enlightened after the Communist Party gave them workshop on their responsibilities. Now, interestingly, in this 1,300 lamas, one name that is missing is His Holiness the Dalai Lama. But what they're saying is, we have rights and responsibility to recognize the next Dalai Lama. Now, he's missing in your list. Why are you so interested in recognizing the next Dalai Lama? If you want to recognize the next one, put him in the list now. They say, no. And His Holiness has a very good response. And I'll add a little bit of masala to this. He said, look, Chinese government, the Communist Party is so interested in my reincarnation. If they really believe in reincarnation, first, they must search the reincarnation of Mao Zedong, Deng Xiaoping, Zhou Enlai. They have done great things for China. Find their reincarnated lamas. Then if I may add, they must be trained in Tibetan monasteries. And when they reach the age of 30, if they're still monk and spiritual, then yes, they can be recognized and enthroned as the reincarnation of Mao Zedong, Deng Xiaoping, and Zhou Enlai. And I think that's a good balance because they're trained in Tibetan monasteries, they know about love, compassion, and kindness, and they will be good leaders for the Chinese government. Once they have certified themselves as someone who can do these things, then they can come and say, look, we have proved ourselves. Now, can we do something about His Holiness Dalai Lama? Then we can discuss, right? And without doing that, they are interfering in our business. As I said, reincarnation was invented in 4,000 meters high Tibetan plateau by Tibetans. It has pure air, blessings of gods and deities of Tibet. There's no pollution in that process. We own it. Now Chinese are saying, no, we'll interfere. So they have no right whatsoever. And also, when you define nation or nationality, you always start with a myth or a legend. You know, when you define nation, it's not territory, it's not geography, it's not government, it's not population. They are a culture. One of the most important component of nation is myth and a legend. Hence, the myth and the legend of Tibet is Tibetan nation and the Tibetan race as a people is, you know that, right? Our father was Chenrezig, Buddha of compassion. Our mother was Goddess Tara, Goddess of mercy. They came to Tibet, they blessed the Tibetan land. That's how Tibet originated, Tibetan people originated. And by the way, the Buddha of compassion happened to be a monkey too. He came in the form of a monkey, and our mother was ogress. She was the manifestation of Goddess Tara. Actually, ogress are very beautiful. I don't know why the Hollywood movie, Shrek make her look not so beautiful. So our father was a monkey, which is similar to the scientific evolution of humanity, and mother ogress, right? So that's how the nation, Tibet nation originated, and Tibetan people originated. Now, Dalai Lamas are the manifestation of Buddha of compassion. So as long as there is Buddha of compassion, there will be Tibet. As long as there are Tibetan people, there will be Dalai Lamas. So Buddha of compassion and Tibet are inseparable. Dalai Lamas and Tibetan people are inseparable, no matter what Chinese government try to do. So this is our story. And Chinese government cannot manufacture in their factories or in the Communist Party headquarters. So I think this story, this narrative, we must understand. When someone asks you, what is this about reincarnation? You say, this was invented by Tibetans. Because other Buddhist countries, they don't have reincarnation. Most of them. Even those who have, like Bhutan, Mongolia, and others, they were influenced by the Tibetan Buddhist practice. So it's authentically, originally Tibetan. And it relates to religious freedom. So what we are saying is, as per democracy, we all have freedom to choose. So reincarnation is our business. Based on religious freedom, Tibetan Lama should choose their reincarnation. Dalai Lama should choose his own reincarnation. So that's the argument. And I hope, our friends, when they ask this question, now if you dwell into the complexities and mysticism of the reincarnation process itself, whether the consciousness or soul transfer from one person to another, I always have one answer. Look, if you're a believer, you believe. If you're not a believer, don't believe. We can't convince the unbeliever. But this is the way Tibetan did it, and this is the way Tibetans wants to do it. So this argument, I think, we have to bear in mind. And this, moving forward, Chinese government will impose on the whole world their definition and their procedure of reincarnation. And if you think it's a laughable effort, it's not. On July 6th, on His Holiness' birthday, I met an Indian journalist in Delhi. He said tomorrow he is going to Tibet as part of the 9 members media delegation for 7 days paid trip. And after 7 days, all the journalists came and had exactly the same headlines, which said, we, the Chinese government, will choose the next Dalai Lama. India should not interfere. If you interfere, you will pay. There will be consequences. Now, the Chinese government is already warning India. India is the second largest populated country in the whole world. If China is already warning India over the next Dalai Lama, what do you think other countries will do if they are warned in a similar fashion? So Chinese government is already coming. India is a stakeholder. India knows this issue very well. Largest number of Tibetans are in India. His Holiness Dalai Lama is in India. Tibetan administration is in India. And already, Chinese government is sending warnings to India. So if you think that this will not come to your country or your governments, it will come to your government. It will come to your country. At that time, we don't want mediators, okay? Our demand is very clear. There can only be one His Holiness Dalai Lama. That's chosen by Tibetans. Because some countries, I don't want to name countries, maybe Europe, some will say, it's okay, let's mediate. There can be one Dalai Lama from Chinese side, let there be one from Tibetan side. It's okay, let's find a solution, If you want to find a common ground, if any government, tell them to find a common ground on middle way approach. on the issue of Tibet. On reincarnation, there is no common ground. That I think we have to be very clear. We must make our argument loud and clear. This is an issue of religious freedom, and no one can interfere. And talking about His Holiness Dalai Lama, another event what we have is next year is declared as Thank You, His Holiness the Dalai Lama. You know, recently we had Thank You, Gratitude Year. Thank you, India, and thank you, world. And we travel all over the world to thank different governments and different supporters. And it was quite a success. As an anecdote, I was in Frankfurt, and it was a small gathering of Tibet support groups. And after we did, Dankeschön Deutschland, and one Tibet support group said, well, I've been supporting Tibet for 20 years, and I'm getting a little gray hair, some gray hair, I'm getting old too, But more I make efforts, China's growing more and more strong, and situation in Tibet is becoming worse and worse. So I'm, kind of losing heart, and, I'm almost thinking of giving it up, because it's not making any there's no result. But after the event, he said, look, what have I have done? If it's worth saying thank you from your side, then I will continue for another 5-10 years. And today I want to say, all your efforts, big or small, makes the difference. It's worth saying thank you, not just in words, but deep from a heart. All of you, you've been with us, not just for 1 or 2 months, not just for 1 or 2 years, for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. I'm sure, like the German friend, many of you have gone through this process thinking, my goodness, I've been at it for 20 years. Situation in Tibet is getting from bad to worse. China is getting more and more powerful. Our governments are changing their stand. Our leaders are changing their stand. Our old friends are becoming pro-China. So my efforts is not resulting in anything. It is. Because as His Holiness says, you all are not simply pro-Tibet, but you are pro-justice. Injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. And you should take pride that we were the key player in 1990s, when the world changed into more democracy, more human rights, more environmental rights. We were one of the key players in the international forum. Free Tibet was very popular. Free Tibet stickers were everywhere. Free Tibet was a slogan. Now today, you see the result. In 1990s, Free Tibet was the most popular campaign. What did the international community say to us? They said, yes, situation in Tibet is bad, but you are an exception. We can do business with China. We can have relationship with China. You are an exception. That's what the international community told us. But we've been telling them, no, we are not an exception. We are part of the larger problem. But the communities, international community leaders said, no, you're a part of an exception. Today, Tibet issue is validated by what's happening in Xinjiang. When 1 or 2 million people put in concentration camps, the whole world is saying, what's happening with 1 or 2 million people in concentration camps? That's what we have been saying for 60 years, and more loudly in 30 years as Free Tibet campaign. What happened to us is happening in China, in rest of the China. You always said we are an exception. Now, are we an exception? Look at Xinjiang. Now, today, whole world is saying yes. But Xinjiang is also another minority like Tibetans. Then what's happening in Hong Kong? Hong Kongers are out in the streets for months and months and months. They're saying, no, we are Chinese or Cantonese. We also want democracy. We also want a basic freedom. Now, whole world is saying, yes, Hong Kong is also a problem. And Taiwan, our friends in Taiwan are saying, look, we have threat of war, threat of cyber war, threat of propaganda war, threat of cultural war in Taiwan. If Taiwanese are saying, yes, it's a problem. So now we are not an exception. So what's happening in Hong Kong, what's happening in Taiwan, what's happening with Uyghur people are affirmation of what we have been saying for 30 years. So we all are partners. And today we have Mongolian friends too. Through this conference, and we have a special event for 3 days. You know, Dharamsala is also a workshop of activism, you know. We train a lot of people here. So our Mongolian friends are also prepping up. When the international community notices them, their situation is as bad as in Tibet or in Xinjiang. It's just that they are not noticed. When they are noticed, they will also be prepared. Hence, today's conference is very important. 1990s is coming back, and we are the veterans of 1990s. We should be prepared to share our wisdom, share our knowledge, share our expertise with activism around the world, including in Xinjiang and Hong Kong and Taiwan and Mongolia and Chinese dissidents and around the world. We will play that pivotal role in bringing changes in China. And that day will happen. Why? Again, as I said, we are Tibetans. We believe in symbols and omens and signs from the above. Because today is the 8th International Tibet Support Group. 8th. In Chinese, Pa means prosperity. That's why Chinese Olympics was held on August 8th, 2008. At 8 p.m., 8 minutes, 8 seconds, to bring prosperity for China. Today is the 8th international conference. It's Pa. Prosperity for Tibet is going to happen from this conference. And in 1990, 8 resolutions were passed. And from this conference, we have to pass 8 different campaigns. And coincidentally, we have 73 TSGs and 15 NGOs. 88 different groups have come to this conference. In 2011, I also took the oath on August 8th, sending a message to China. During my tenure, prosperity after prosperity will happen. And it has, right? Look at this hall. You all have been to Dharamsala many times before. Dharamsala has prospered a little bit, right? Prosperity has come. So now the Chinese government is in dilemma. They cannot criticize this conference because it's the Pa conference. It's the 8th conference. If they criticize Pa, they will not get prosperity. So today's conference will be applauded even by the communists, the non-believers. They will say, yes, Pa conference will lead to Pa for Tibet. And that's how His Holiness the Dalai Lama will return to Tibet. That's how basic freedom will be restored in Tibet. And that's how Tibet, inside and outside, will be reunited. And we will have 9th THC conference in Tibet. You know, 9 means 9 is also a lucky number for Chinese. It's true. So we are at the Pa conference moving to 9th. So it's all good. So that's why yesterday as TIPA performance, the first performance was not planned. We had all these tantric masters, the sorcerers came and destroyed all the evils. And the final one, we had angels come and hunters come and clear the path for 8th international conference, for 8 resolutions. After the implementation, it will be Pa, 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 Cho, Cho, Cho. Prosperity and success. Thank you very much.
Many, many thanks to Honorable Sekwang for his eloquent speech and address to the conference, which is going to be the guiding factor for our discussion and formulations of the resolutions and action plan. I have no doubt Tibet and Tibetan people will win. The day is not very far, because truth is on their side and truth can't be defeated forever. We wish and we are the supporters of the Tibetan cause that we will keep our work from heart and supporting the struggle of the Tibetan peoples, and they will win one day. I wish so. Now there is a book release session. I request the organizers to present the book before the Honorable Sekwang, Chief Guest, and Supreme Judge and other dignitaries before the dais for the release of the book. Now I request the Chief Guest and to join the book release.
Tata Tete Garrison, Janak Hangundan doesn't profess Kebachig, Janak Yichala, Jejane, Pete Logitula, Janak Chashi Remudu said, Takundu Womani, Tense Janak Yichana Karioba Dugu said, Tuso, Korang shoots up Drune, Tenrichidor, Janak Logi each other, Kondi Cha, Chasun Jan Chedor, Gonda, then in Shigme, the Pekik Tuchena.
Excuse me, the book is written so in which it was explained that Tibet was never a part of China. So when studying the Chinese, very frequently the Chinese Communist Party, they say that Tibet belongs to China from ancient times. But studying the Ming Dynasty, Yuan Dynasty, and Qing Dynasty, all this historical record says that Tibet has never been a part of China. This is how the information is compiled in these books. Thank you.
Thank you. Now you request Mr. Arya, Secretary, Department of Information and International Relations, to present formal vote of thanks before we go for tea.
Rashidile, Namaste and good morning. And Honorable Chief Guest Speaker of the Tibetan Parliament in Exile, Mr. Pema Jungne, and the members of Parliament, Supreme Justice Commission, Sum Tagola and the judges, Sikyong President Dr. Lobsang Sangye of Central Tibetan Administration and the Honorable Kadens, Election and Public Service Commission Pezu Wantu Sringla, Audit Commission Pema Damdu Ariela, Secretaries of CTA departments, and representative of officers of Tibet. Chairman of the core group for Tibetan cause, Shri R.K. Khirmeji, speaker and members of International Tibet Support Group, and NGOs from some 42 countries, and press and media representatives. With this, we come to the end of the inaugural session of the 8th International Tibet Support Group meeting. Now I would like to convey the word of thanks to those who have made this function great and successful. First of all, I would like to thank all the dignitaries and guests on the dais and the members of the International Tibet Support Group and supporters who have come all the way to Dharamsala to attend this conference. And I would like to thank our honorable chief guest who has to leave early because of some other functions, Mr. Pema Junela, Speaker of Tibetan Parliament in exile, for his addressing the gathering and his especially explaining about the middle way approach. And I thank Kungu Sikyong, Dr. Lobsang Sangye, for his keynote address and his welcome message and briefing on the importance of this conference and his update on some important issues and some interesting anecdote that he has shared with us. And we especially thank Kungu Sikyong for his constant guidance and supervisions for making this conference to happen. Thank you, Kungula. And Shri R.K. Khirmeji, the chairperson of the core group of Tibetan cause, the organizer of this 8th International Tibet Support Group Conference, for his welcome and introductory speech. Shri Khirme and Indian core group members have worked closely with our ITCO India Outreach Office in making this conference happen in time. And we thank Shri Khirmeji and the members of the core group and the ITCO staff for their sincere work and hard effort and the hard work. Then we have staff of Department of International and Information Office, DIR. They have been working overtime to make this arrangement for this conference, hotel booking, vehicle arrangement, etc. Our staff have been allocated with the different responsibilities. I thank all the DIR staff, and especially Ms. Dunze and her assistant, Chetenla, who have been coordinating all the representative and the participant and scheduling the events. And I would also like to thank Chief Justice Commissioner Kungu Thakola, who was till recently the Secretary of the DIR, and much of the work in organizing this conference has been because of his guidance. Please thank you, Kungu Thakola. And my thanks to Shri Surinder Kumarji, who has to be the MC today at the last minute, and he has done a very good job. And the Tipa Artisty for having sung the national anthem songs. So here I may have missed some. To them I offer my apology. And at the same time, I would like to thank them sincerely for their contributions. Lastly, I pray for the long life and of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and may the sunshine of freedom come to Tibet. May Tibetan in and outside Tibet get united at the earliest, and may this International Support Group Conference be successful, and it opens many doors to resolve the Tibet issue. Thank you very much. Tuji Shena.
Now, tea break. We will come back to the hall at 11 a.m. for the next session. Thank you.